that picture, but that's exactly where he is right now. And
he's in his tomb in the Valley of Kings. It's the only artifact they've left in his tomb is his body. And the reason that I didn't take the photos because you're not allowed to, but this one came off the internet. So Lily was pretty impressed with King Tut. Talk about how big King Tut was.
He was probably maybe shorter than me.
Yeah,
he probably was shorter than me. He was really tiny and really wrinkly and really old.
And what are the jars above King Tut for?
And the jars above the picture of King Tut, those are kidnapping jars. After they take out all the guts of the mummy, they put them in those jars and then put them in their tomb with them. And I learned all that from that book right there that I'm holding called How I Became a Mummy. And it teaches you all about how they make mummies, but it actually was really funny. Me and Mom finished it in one day because it was so good.
Yeah, let's keep going. What else do we got? This one. Do you want to talk about that?
So we took a little cruise called the Felucca, and it was on the Nile, and that's me, Mom, and Grandma on the Felucca. And Grandma froze that night because in Egypt it's pretty warm during the day, but then at night it's freezing, so Grandma froze that night. But we also went on the Red Sea and took a little cruise there with a little cruise ship, and we went snorkeling there, and we saw some really cool fish, and the water was so clear you could see to the very bottom of the sand. And
Ariel, that picture of me and Grandma and Lily was taken the day that we bought your birthday present, because that was February the 14th, and we stopped on the side. The Felucca, there's a kind of a ceiling there. You can see how low it is. So we slept on that boat that night, and before we went to bed, literally where you see there, there was some vendors that came, and it was Ariel's birthday, and so we wanted to buy her something. So she got a little carved turtle. There wasn't much to choose from Ariel. So there you go. Thanks, love. So for me, I kind of picked my highlight as kind of a bigger area. Southeast Asia was not something on my radar to do. It was my friend Mandy Bridson who told me you have to go and you have to go for months. And then she proceeded to help me plan it and tell me why I should go. Mandy since left us, so I'm really, really glad that she did that for me. And this was our first stop. Our first stop was in Bali. We loved it because we left Australia. So to give you an idea of our path, we started in Australia, which was the farthest destination, and we'd done a month in Australia in a camper van. So if that didn't test family resolve, nothing else would have. I think we'll get to that story in a minute. And then it was off to Bali. Bali is kind of like the Mexico for Australians. So there's lots of people there just to have a really good time. We found ourselves in this wonderful little hostel called the Onion Collective, which had the best food. In fact, Lily's favorite food of the whole trip was the fish tacos at this place.
The fish tacos, the sauce.
Oh, the sauce, there you go, which we cannot replicate. And that was the pool there, and you really needed it. So I was, we were really excited about Bali. And then from Bali, we actually went to Kuala Lumpur, which was our 2-night stop, because that's where there's a lot of budget airlines out there. So I implore you, if you travel, especially outside North America, there's a ton of ways to travel on budget airlines. We actually paid less, usually we paid less for 3 airline tickets than we would to go to Tesoro for dinner. So if you can think of that in perspective, they fly us several hours. So it got to the point where I'd see a bill of $400 to fly us, and I'd be like, that's really expensive. But anyway, we went first class to China, which was a bit of a bust, because if you go first class on a budget airline, it's really still budget airline. And so we decided we'd take a red eye from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. That was a bad choice, because our leather seats, we kept sliding in and nobody slept, and then we arrived at Beijing at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the Chinese people didn't want us hanging out in the hotel lobby, which we did anyway. So we made it with a few bumps and bruises on our first class flight. And the first couple of days, this was one of the prepackaged tours, we ended up at the Great Wall, called the Long Wall, of China. So there was a lot of surprises along our tour, but this was a fun one. You think of the Great Wall of China, you think of that picture that I have there and the beautiful things. What you don't realize is that you can actually, it's kind of like Blue Mountain, really. You can go up on a ski lift, which is what we did because it's a long walk up and it was slippery, and we were also told that the wall itself is very undulating, so to save your energy, I guess, for that.
Yeah, they told us, they said, like, you can walk up to get up there, but then you got to walk, and the wall literally does this. You know, so they said it was a smart move to take the chairlift up.
And fitness is not our #1 priority in our family, so we took the ride up, and then on the way down, you remember the old Blue Mountain slide ride? Well, there it is. That's how we came down off the wall. Can I tell that story?
Sure.
Okay, so that was a funny story because, well, first of all, we were impressed because there was a big sign with Michelle Obama's picture on it, and there was the picture behind it was her Secret Service guy.
Yeah, it was her on one of those little slide rides, and she had a Secret Service guy in front, and a Secret Service guy in the back. So.
You're gonna take my eye out with that. And the Secret Service guy did not look impressed. So we thought that was funny. But then we got in line, and Lily and I ended up getting on a toboggan for 2, and the guy had, broken English, but he was funny. And then he says to Doug, "Oh, you happy Buddha, you get."
So he put me on a double one.
And from then on in China, you were happy Buddha. Like a lot of people took the. Everybody thought Doug was happy Buddha, so that became his name.
The Asian people are obsessed with your weight.
Yes, they are. Yes.
How much you weigh?
Yeah, that more than once. And then you have to convert it to kilograms because we don't generally.
Yeah.
And then you take a few pounds off because you do that, and then they're still amazed that you weigh that amount. And at the bottom of the Great Wall of China, we went to Subway restaurant for lunch, which was there. So again, completely out of what we thought we would find, but really welcome at that point because we had indulged in some of the Balinese food, and we were kind of ready for a little Western food. So we were happy to have that. The next stop in Southeast Asia that we loved, was Vietnam. I had no idea about Vietnam, and this was totally put on our trip for the purposes of my friend. This picture here of the lady is actually Doug's 3rd wife. I'm his 2nd wife. This is Doug's now 3rd wife, because when we were in Ha Long Bay, which is that famous place you see the big boats, we stopped at a pearl farm, and Lily actually has the pearl with her, and you can just walk around with it if you want, Lil. It's just a little pearl. And I think you should take the story over from here because you tell it better than I.
So she was showing us how they cultivate pearls at this pearl farm. So she was showing us how they do it, and then so she told me there's a bucket of oysters, and she said, "Oh, just pick one." So I picked this one, and she said, "Oh, you're sure there's a pearl in there?" I said, "I don't know. It sounds good, right?" So I'm like, "I don't know." Anyways, they picked it up, and when you first open it, you don't see it right away. So she goes, "Oh, there's nothing in there," but they actually have to cut the muscle open a bit, and then it's inside there, right? So it doesn't. You always see it on TV like it's sitting right on top, but it's not really. It kind of sits underneath, hidden inside. So we cut it open, and then she brought it out, and then she says, then she's kind of looking at it, and they kind of gauge like the quality of it, and she says, "It's a medium handsome pearl, much like yourself." She says to me.
Prior to that, she was also hitting on Doug and saying, "Oh, you lucky, you take me home and I be your wife." And Lily and I were in the crowd. He says, "Oh, well, my wife's over there, and that's my daughter." And she says, "Oh, she called me auntie."
I'm still not sure if she was kidding or not. So she was very convincing.
I'm conscious of the time, and I have lots of other slides to show you, so we'll go quickly. We loved Vietnamese food. We had no idea.
That was so good.
There's a little place in Orangeville called South Viet 88, I think. Yeah. It's my new favorite place because they have pretty close to some of the food that we had. Lily's #1 favorite food of the entire trip was, we call faux pho, as they call it. Yeah. And the people were amazing. This is Lily in the top right playing with some little kids in the park, and the dad was pushing them on the swing. The lady at the bottom was one of our homestay hosts, bought Lily that dress. Mind you, about 4 sizes too small, but that was okay. And this guy showed up, this water buffalo guy showed up to give us rides, and the poor water buffalo, when Doug got on it, made this noise. So anyway, we got on.
Insulted all over.
Yeah, there was no in keeping with that. We love the Vietnamese culture. We went to a place called Hoi An, which is pictured here. It's a very old town, quite touristy. I wrote in the journal that we kept a journal of like an entry every day, that it kind of reminded me of home. It was kind of like here, like it just seemed like, I don't know, it seemed Collingwood-ish from the standpoint that there was a lot of people there to visit, and everybody was happy, and it was relaxed, and we felt safe, and yeah, it was great. Yeah, we had a great time. So the kind of life-changing experiences, the things that were really take-homes for us. And I'll talk about the first one. This is a picture in Bali. One of the reasons we went to Bali, not only for my friend, was because its soccer mum, that I didn't really know, was going on and on and on about this green school in Bali, and how they're on the forefront of education for the environment. And I have to admit that I can't consider myself an environmentalist, but we went to this program as what's called a family camp. So the three of us basically did summer camp for a weekend. It was like summer because we were anyway, it was really hot, and we were taking malaria pills. But we ended up with this wonderful group of travelers from all over. The Japanese people in the front we couldn't really talk to because they only knew Japanese. There's several Aussies in there who come into our story later. And we were mud wrestling. Mud wrestling is the national sport of Bali. And so somewhere out in cyberspace there is videotaped evidence of my husband and I in our bathing suits mud wrestling. I'm hoping you never see it, and I'm hoping I never do either. But it was in that pit, and it was awesome. And it was all about kind of letting go too. It was like back to that feeling you have when you go as a kid to summer camp and you just play. And so that picture was actually taken. There was a professional photographer doing a promotional video following us. So there were several really good ones. Yeah, and so, and they really hit home about what we need to be doing. While we lived there, I think there was one piece of plastic garbage that we created amongst the three of us. Oh, it was the pill pops, you know, that we had to take the malaria pills.
All the food that we ate there was actually farmed right there.
Yeah,
on the
grown on
site.
site, vegan, of which my husband was a little concerned.
I lost a lot of weight there.
And we did, like, they had a pee palace and a poo palace, so we learned all about, you know, how to do compostable toilets and absolutely everything that. So that was a huge takeaway experience for me. For Lily, it was this one.
So I really liked Elephant Nature Park because I really liked hanging out with the elephants. That's me and Dad petting the elephant, and I'm pretty sure she's old, and how I know that is because they told us that the really old elephants are the ones that have like the sunken in skulls. So, temples. So, if you see like right here, it's all like pushed in, and it's me and Dad petting her. And apparently, I do not remember doing this. But apparently, that's what I wrote in my journal. December 12th, Elephant Nature Park. Today we went to the Elephant Nature Park, and the elephants are so gentle and so nice, not like monkeys. I got bit by a monkey when we were in Bali. And it is so sad to hear that people would shoot them. So not nice. They do it just to make money, like doing elephant rides and circuses, but really they should just let them live like people. They work them way too hard every day and
Carrying.
carrying lots of heavy things. It is not fair for the elephants. Elephants and people should be treated the same.
So this was actually a sanctuary that we went to, and we spent the night there. So again, we were listening to lions one night, listening to elephants another. What do we know about elephants now when they sneak up on you?
The way they walk is so quiet. So if you're at school now, whenever I'm at school now, and I'm walking in the hall with my class, and right after we come out from gym or something, my teacher says that sounded like elephants were running down the hall. I'm like, we were that quiet.
We did have a couple of occasions where people had to tell us that the elephants were behind us.
Yeah,
You just
they
cannot
make
hear.
no noise when they're walking.
Yeah.
So weird.
So this is a really famous place that we went, and they're doing really great work about taking elephants that have been abused, basically. The whole process of breaking in an elephant is a terrible process, and we don't have time to go through that, but I will never ever ride an elephant again. I never have, but I never would, and I would encourage people to do research about the humane part of that. We were really, really taken about that they shoot their eyes out so that they become more dependent on humans to make sure that they, behave and that type of stuff. It's horrible stuff that they do. So
there was a lot of the elephants were blind, been blinded by humans, and so but they were really neat. The elephants, like there'd be like one elephant that could still see, would actually help the other ones like get around and that too. Yeah, it was pretty neat.
And they were super gentle creatures. This
Yeah,
is just
yeah.
one of a million shots of us just wandering amongst the paddock of elephants. So.
And they're just the female elephants, as we found out.
Yes.
The male elephants are a bit naughty, and they have to be in a pen by themselves and that too. So.
Yeah. So this was Doug's I would say, most memorable moment?
Yeah, when we were in Dubai, Dubai was another one we just kind of, we hadn't really planned on going there, but we were on our way to Egypt, so we stopped there, and they had this place called the
Jumeirah? Yeah.
We sit around, mosque, and it was an open doors mosque, so they allowed you to go there, and we basically went through the whole Muslim religion. We did the washing the feet, how we're supposed to pray, and then which way you're supposed to face, and all that too. So that was really interesting. And the lady that gave the speech was incredible. She obviously had been educated in the States because she spoke in English with an American accent. But she asked, people ask questions about terrorism and extremists and all that. She answered every really thing, and the best one she said was how, like we were asking about the high
Jab.
Hey, Judge. Thank you. And she was saying like she wore one, but her daughter didn't wear one, and we were asking like, well, what was the difference? She said, well, it's not a religious thing. There's nowhere where the religion says you have to wear the headdress. It's a cultural thing. So she really kind of pushed on the difference between cultural and a religious difference, and I thought it was really clever the way she did it. And then she brought up, and then someone was asking about the terrorists and stuff like that, and then she said, well, where you're from? She said she was from the States, and she said, well, you guys have the KKK. That's a extremist religious group as well, right? They claim all their beliefs are on the Bible. So she says, every religion has their extremists within that too. And you can't lump them all together. Not everybody is the same on it too. So yeah, it was pretty amazing, like just to hear her talk about all that stuff, and it was definitely like everyone should kind of have seen something like or listened to something like that, so it gives you a better appreciation of all the different cultures in that too. So yeah, it was really, really well done.
I think it was really defining for Doug. He left there and said that is the best thing we've done on this trip so far, and we were well halfway into our trip at that point. And Doug's not a big fan of church. So
I'm not.
No, or organized religion. That's not true. You're not a fan of the organized part of it.
I'm in architecture. I like churches because they're pretty impressive. And they were,
yeah. So
but she really brought it home like a really good way that all the religions should be in that too. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and they let us dress up. That's us dressed up there. Yeah. Whether we knew what we were doing or not, and it was not considered. We weren't playing or taking away from their culture. They wanted us to come in and hear how they were doing.
Yeah,
so
they were really good.
Yeah, they even fed us before we went in there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So we'll move on to a new section of the presentation. We'll talk about these are the frequently asked questions that we get, and kind of some tips and mistakes of things that we did. So the first question we get asked is why? Why would you do this? Why? And my answer was why not? Actually, my mom was not a really great proponent of this at all. You're going to take my grandchild across the world and someone's going to snatch her. And so we had to have a pretty serious conversation about the fact that I couldn't cope with her giving me this feedback, because God forbid if something did happen, I would never, I'd never get through that guilt. And so there was some pretty strong.
There was definitely either people were really excited for you, or people are like, oh, why would you do that? So
yeah. And why did we do it? Well, we wanted to create an adventure, and we wanted to celebrate accomplishment. And yes, this was a bucket list item of mine, and these two got dragged along for that. And I really wanted Lily in particular, Doug's well traveled, but to experience authentic travel. So, we're not climbing along a cruise ship, which is great, at that time of your life when you want something that's very stable. But we wanted to see the world from a local perspective. So, and we got a smidgen of that. I wanted Lily to develop empathy, and I wanted her to see what it's like to be a global citizen, not just a Canadian or a North American or a white person. And we really are in an age of entitlement right now, where kids are getting and gifting everything and helicopter parents, and that's just not the way that it works in a lot of other areas of the world, and it can't work that way. Living minimalistically was not necessarily one of my reasons why I went, but man, did it feel good when we did it. I'll show you a picture of our backpacks and how little we had with us. And I can get set in my ways about things, and developing flexibility and adaptability was really key for me particularly, but we had to do a lot of things on the fly. I love to plan. In fact, I can plan the fun out of anything, but it was a really great end result for us. And should just foster some open-mindedness and cultural awareness. I mean, Collingwood is a white place to live, and it is one of many wonderful places, but there is so much more out there. I wanted us to experience that as a family. So that's a little bit of why. How do we choose where to go? Doug, you're up for this one. I'll just, yeah.
We kind of started with our kind of bucket list of places where we wanted to go. And then we kind of had to start narrowing it down. Obviously, can't do them all. Budget was one thing. We wanted to go to Japan, but that basically, we would have just gone to Japan for a month and we'd have to come home again because it was so expensive. So that's unfortunately going to save for another time. Another thing was we kind of tried to plan on the direction. So either we go east to west or west to east. So we decided to go this route, starting in Australia and making our way back, always going westward. And that way we were always in the same kind of temperature all the time. We didn't really have highs and lows. So that made it easy as well for packing and that too. We basically packed for summer, fallish kind of weather. We did get caught off guard in a few places, like in India and Egypt, at nighttime where it got pretty cold, whatever, and that too. So, but in general, we were pretty well packed for that too. And then we just kind of, so basically we're kind of along the equator most of the time. So we're either south or north of it just a little bit, so it made it kind of easier for traveling in that too. That was basically it. And then we just kind of made ourselves, just headed west from Australia, just started heading west until we got back to Canada.
It turned out to be a good job that we went the furthest distance first, because then everything seemed easy after that. After we'd flown to Australia, actually we flew to LA, flew from LA to Sydney. Sydney, I then put these two on a 3-hour flight to Cairns, which is basically, you know, flying from one part of the coast to the other, and the two of them were not happy. You'll see that
We
picture.
flew for almost like 21 hours straight.
Yeah.
So anytime you did a flight, like a 7-hour flight, it's
Oh, we can do that, no problem. Lily, where did we stay?
Well, we lived in a camper van, the Juicy Camper, for a month in Australia, and that's me and Dad in bed. So the bed that Dad's in actually folds up into a couch, and kind of where the camera is would be with a TV actually. So you can put in a CD and like watch something there. So we just bought some CDs, and that's how we watched movies.
Tamara said to me when she rented the camper, "How tall are you in centimeters?" And I was like,
Doug is 188 centimeters, the bed is 188 centimeters, so I figured you would fit. Yeah, and Doug got wet the first 3 nights. Doug does not like to camp, so the first few nights that we were in Australia, he got wet 3 times in a row. I thought he was out of there. I'm wet again! So yeah, it was a bit precarious the first few days, yeah. I'm going to take over for a bit because we're going to run out of time. We stayed in igloos, but those were actually in Thailand.
yeah.
And Doug flicked a spider at me this size. That was a fun day. And then that little one in the middle is actually where we stayed in Bali. Remember I told you that we stayed in like a little hut. It was hot as Hades in there, but that's where we stayed. But there's a beautiful outdoor shower, which I realized as I was standing having my shower and looking up, there was also a man picking coconuts on my head. So we stayed on a floating raft, that's top right. Friends of ours came to visit us in Thailand and we did that. And we stayed in a lot of hostels, so that gives you an idea. That was one of our fun hostels. Lily loved her little bed there, so the room is just about as big as that picture is. So we were very close together for a very long period of time. Hostels, huts, igloos, river raft, treehouse, overnight trains, Indian palaces, tents, camping cabins, budget hotels, lots of really good spots. It was fun. That part of not knowing where we were going was fun. What we looked for in budget accommodation, so if you're planning to do this, is we kind of realized that you have to have not only your budget, but you have to decide what you want for your budget. For us, it was important to pay, to know what the price was, because in many other countries you pay by the person, not by the room. So you only make that mistake a couple of times. And a private bathroom was really important to us. Now, this is the private bathroom in Egypt that Lily was telling you about, the swanky place that we were in. There's Grandma taking your picture. We actually did laundry in that sink. I think we stained it by the time that we were done because our laundry was so filthy. I didn't realize that everywhere we were, we sent our laundry out because there was really no other way to do it. And some local person was down at the river with all of the silt. So when we started taking our clothes to wash them out again, there was like streams and streams of red like silt coming out of our clothes. My mother-in-law bought us all sweaters there because she just didn't want to be seen with us because we looked so awful. So we also looked for free Wi-Fi. Interestingly enough, that's what they're doing with the boxes in England these days, or some of them anyway. There was free Wi-Fi there. And it was a real bonus if we could find a washer and dryer. So that was taken in Prague, and that's why Lily's all excited because we actually found our own washer and dryer. So those were some of the priorities that we had. Oftentimes you would get fed, air conditioning depending on whether we were there, distance to public transport, grocery stores, pools, those kinds of things. Those all kind of filtered into, you know, what we could get for our money. Got lots for our money in Southeast Asia and very little for our money when we were in Europe. Moving on. How was the food, Doug?
Food was amazing, except for China. Which is right, you would have thought that China wasn't really good, but it was the worst food. But every other place was really good, wasn't it?
We had hot orange juice in China. You walk up to where the coffee is dispensed and you push the button and the orange juice comes out of it. And then they have a Western breakfast and you get French fries at breakfast.
Yeah, they kind of make stuff they think we would eat for breakfast or that too. It's like, it's not very
the
good.
middle picture actually there says bacon lettuce ding. So that was at breakfast. I don't know what bacon lettuce ding is, but I think we ate. And that bottom picture is at Bali where Doug was saying that we had all the vegan food that they grew right on it. And then the other bottom picture, that's all the olives when we were in Greece. Greece was a great spot to eat, and it was cheap. We could buy things at the markets, and it was wonderful. So we had lots of good food. Oh, and here's another bit of advice when you're traveling. They have this great saying, same but different. Which basically means, oh, you know, it's the same, but you know, it's really not the same as it is at home. So you can see the packaging that you recognize there with all of the different brands. There were nights that we had pop and chips and cookies for dinner because we could not find anywhere else to eat. We couldn't recognize a restaurant. We didn't know how far to go. Kentucky Fried Chicken seems to be everywhere. We tried to limit ourselves with that, or McDonald's to once a country. But you can find, you know, basically those items anywhere in the world under those packaging. We found some really neat different flavored Oreos and different flavored chips.
If you can see the chips, it actually says the flavor is numb and spicy hot pot flavor.
Yeah, I didn't know those, but we had seaweed chips that we knew that we would really like too. Did you get sick? We did get sick. We did a lot of prevention though. There's a really fantastic clinic in Barrie. There's a couple of them, but we went to one, I can't remember, I didn't write it down. And we got some shots, less than I thought we were gonna get. We did take malaria pills with us. We barely scratched the surface of the number that we took with us because it's kind of like coming to Canada and expecting to get bit by a mosquito in like January sometimes, right? It's just not mosquito season, so we didn't take them then.
The doctor in the Barrie there, but he was really good too. He'd actually traveled to a lot of these places, so he told you, unless you're going deep in the jungle, you wouldn't need the malaria on too. So he was really well versed on what you should take and what you need not take.
That's right. He was also really good at giving us some prescription drugs just in case we needed them, because of course that doesn't happen in Canada, right? You have to go and get what you need, but we had a kind of a kit of just in case, and we did have some just in case situations. Doug was very ill in Cambodia for 3 days. Fortunately, we were at a hotel where we could stay for the week. We believe he got into some hot sauce that was sitting out on a table, on a plastic table.
Just kind of leave stuff lying out there on the refrigerator.
And we had no trouble for a long period of time, but we couldn't figure out why he got sick and Lily and I didn't. To the point where I would come in and check on him, and he says that he was delirious. I said that he was answering my questions. So it was really kind of touch and go, and I was forcing him to drink electrolyte drinks, which he really didn't like. But we were pretty close to having to go get help at that particular point, but he seemed to rally after we took the medication that was given to us for traveler's diarrhea. But then the good part was he was so sick that anytime we got kind of sick thereafter, we were like, oh, we're not Cambodia sick. We're fine.
That's
yeah,
right,
so moving on, yeah.
No, that's nothing.
Yeah. Lily got a little touch of what we call La Turista as well. We happened to be out doing an activity that day, and we were near a chicken coop. So the chicken kept yelling at us while I kept holding Lily as she tried to deal with the Eastern toilet, and we were singing ABCs, and that wasn't really fun, but we threw a couple of Imodium in, and she was right to go. She also lost a tooth when we were in Portugal.
Yeah, because I have silver caps, and I thought one of the caps was coming off, but it actually was the whole tooth. So we went to the dentist to take it off and then put it back on properly, but she said it actually was just loose, but it's a Portuguese dentist, so she couldn't understand us very well. She didn't have very good English, so she thought that we wanted her to pull out the tooth.
She did. And there's Lily, tears and all, and Sammy, and the lovely Portuguese dentist. Everybody wanted their picture taken. We didn't mention in here yet, and Lily kind of mentioned it quickly, that she did get bit by a monkey, but I think that comes up a little bit later in our story, so we'll talk about that as well. And we didn't drink the water. You know, drinking water is here, and Doug's got the communal cup there. We took that picture for a friend of ours who was like sure that we were going to die from drinking the local water. We just thought that was a funny picture.
We drank the water in Australia, like out of the tap, but once we left Australia, we didn't drink water from the tap until we got to France near the end of our tour.
Yeah, so it was just like almost 7 months.
Even the locals wouldn't drink the water out of the tap, so it was like,
Lily, you want to talk about toilets?
So, that I kind
Here you
of
go in front. It's okay.
with the stick.
Oh yeah, here.
It's kind of hard to see, but the spot says urinal in Portugal. It's kind of hard to see. That's Dad's face right there.
Yeah, you just had these random like pieces of metal, and you would just like step behind it, and there was a hole in the ground with a pipe and water running down.
Which is great if you're a guy.
You couldn't even really see where the hole went. So
Yeah.
you just
In the middle, though?
That was the public bathroom in China. So it's just the Eastern toilets with no door in front, just some in between.
What we learned, however, though, is if you travel to Eastern countries, find the handicapped washroom, and it will be a Western toilet. So you'll have a lot of white people lined up for the handicapped toilet.
it's trickier than you think, the Eastern toilet. I won't describe how tricky it
Let's
is.
just say aim is an issue.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that. The top right, Lo, where were we then?
We were in Thailand.
No, that's India.
That was it?
And it actually can't see it, but it says she and he, kind of east and west. You go in and you go out. There was nothing in there. Suffice to say that you would, bear any of your parts. So everybody goes around behind the toilets, which is also not great either. So, but that, in fairness, that was kind of out in the middle of the jungle. And why is there a picture of that telephone booth there?
Okay, so no one uses the telephone booth for calling anyone in London anymore. But when me and Dad thought it'd be cool to go in one, so we went up. I opened the door and I came out like this because someone was like going to the bathroom in there.
Yeah, unfortunately, they kind of use them as toilets now. Too.
Yeah, so they're kind of like the urinal in Portugal. They were using them as. So we
And it
thought
smelled really,
it's
really
really
good.
good. So I tried to get a lovely picture of my family in London. That's what I got.
There's actually still a phone in there too, which is kind of scary.
So you like call someone to go to the bathroom at the same time.
Doug, do you want to talk about how we got around?
We used every mode of transportation known to man.
We did.
We did trains, planes, boats, canoes, rafts,
Tuk-tuks?
tuk-tuks. Tuk-tuks basically a little motorized taxi thing. We used, well, you can see we used a camel cart.
Yeah.
And then these things are like the one that says Toyota in the back of it. They have taxis. This is in Thailand. They have taxis, and then I can't remember what they call these things, but it's basically like, and they got public transport as well. But this is just some guy driving around, picks up people, and you just pay him, and then you're kind of going where everybody else is going in the pickup, and you get off when you want, and it was kind of neat actually. All the locals seemed to take it too, and it was crazy cheap too. So we just said, oh, we'll try it out. Sometimes you didn't get quite where you wanted to go, but
we did actually take 30 flights at the time that we did our flight. We never lost a bag and we never missed a flight, so we did pretty well. And as I had said, they're way cheaper than you think.
Yeah, at one point we had booked a train to go from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, and we screwed up something on the day or something like that, so we had to cancel the train. And once we canceled the train, we paid the cancellation fee, and then we bought a trip. We ended up buying plane tickets to go between the two, and it was still cheaper
It was
than
$19.
It was cheaper
The
than
three of us to fly
the
inside
cancellation fee of the train. Remember that too?
Yeah, it was
like,
$19. Yeah.
So she said, "Oh, just cancel it. It's going to be like cheaper to fly."
It turned out to be our favorite airline, Vietjet.
Vietjet.
And the ladies were all dressed up in these fancy outfits, and we bought like a little souvenir on the plane because we just thought it was so
They
fun.
look like girl guys.
They did look like
The little girl guide up.
How did you afford this? So that's one of the questions that we get asked. And we're all friends here, but we rented our house, so we had no expenses to that. We had a super duper amazing renter experience of people that were transitioning up to Collingwood. As a teacher, I took a deferred salary leave. So what happens is I chose to have my 4 years of salary divided over 5 years. So I basically took a 20% pay cut, and they gave me that 20% at the end. There are other positions that will do that as well. A deferred salary leave is actually something that you can find in the Ontario government website and taxation and stuff. What else did we do? We budgeted, and we talked about that varied budget for the 3 of us. And that, the budget kind of came into 3 lumps of 30,000. So there was kind of a accommodation, activities, local transport, kind of like our working budget. There was our 4 guided trips that we did of a budget of about $30,000.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what, oh, and flights. So, you know, those 30 flights cost us about $30,000 as well. We didn't actually get that far in our budget, and I was really good at keeping track for a while. We came home at about the $75,000 level, and then we got home and I bought new furniture, and I did all these things that I wanted to do that I hadn't done in 5 years. So the budget kind of went up for.
You should have done a picture of our living room.
Yes, I should have. You can see there the cheap wine, $2 and €2 and €2.20 for wine in Portugal. So you know you don't drink water, you drink wine. And that book there, Travel the World at $50 a Day by Nomadic Matt Nehes, was one of that was my Bible for the whole thing. He taught me a lot. And the picture in the middle actually says, "Happy birthday, Dad, wish you were here." My father gifted us some money as well. So he actually ended up paying for our India trip, and that's my brother and his wife there. So, and we happened to be there on his birthday. We offered to have him come, and he was not coming to India. So that's how we afforded it. Did you go over budget? That's another thing we get asked. Again, we've talked about this a bit. Some of our outings, but we would not, I think, save 1 penny on having not done the things that we did. So
I remember reading before we left, and someone said, don't not do something because you think you can't afford it, because it's like, because you're there already, you know, and it may seem expensive at the time, but after you do it, it's kind of like our safari trip. Like, it seemed like a lot of money at the time, but it was well worth it. Like, it was amazing there. So yeah, so that was a good comment someone had made.
Yeah, and we followed that. So that's me on the Great Barrier Reef, diving. That's Doug and Lily at Australia Zoo. You recognize Steve Irwin there. They have all kinds of really fun stuff there. We're in the middle of the desert in Dubai there. We taken a safari trip out, and that family we ended up sitting with. We took a slow riverboat cruise down the Mekong River for 2 days, so that was there. My girlfriend came to Portugal. Actually, that's a tip for people who are traveling. I left my banking information, signed checks, kind of my entire financial life with my girlfriend here in Collingwood. Technically, I should have also done some sort of power of attorney or something along that line. But she had kind of the helm of everything, and it was a good thing that she did. So if you are going, I have some really great tips about banking and how to make sure when you lose or your visa is compromised what to do, because both of those things happen to us. And she was pretty instrumental in helping us with that. So if you're really interested, I'd be happy to talk to you about that afterwards. Wasn't it dangerous? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, we skipped. Over budget. No, here we go. Aren't you a lucky girl? Do you want to talk about that, Lil? Aren't you a lucky girl? She heard that a lot.
So I think I should have kept count of how many times I heard, "Aren't you a lucky girl?" or "Aren't you lucky?" So at first I really was not happy. So that picture is on day 1. Me and Dad are in the airport, and I'm not sure if that was
That's when we just finished our flight from Los Angeles to Sydney, and we were waiting in the airport to take our next flight.
Oh, by the way, guys.
3-hour flight
Yeah.
to Cairns.
That was our first Facebook post, so I thought that was funny. And there was lots of walking and lots of waiting and lots of early mornings and no kids, so you didn't feel particularly lucky. So we kind of cringed every time everybody would ask her that. But do you feel lucky now? Yeah. So, yeah, and you miss kids. One kid in particular, we FaceTimed a lot in school, right? But in the end, I think we figured it out. And sometimes we promised you things that didn't happen. Like in Egypt, we promised you that there would be kids on the tour. It was the 4 of us and Grandma. So
it surprisingly goes faster than you think too when you're there.
Yeah.
Every day you're doing something new, so it's the days kind of flow pretty fast.
But we did do some kid stuff. Can you give 2 seconds about what some of these pictures?
The first one, that when we were in China, it was Halloween, and that's a boy drew that he was on our tour, and we celebrated Halloween in our room, and we got those masks off the back of cereal box. We had bought pumpkins and just like used a Sharpie to draw faces on them. The the one in the top right corner, that was an airplane at Kidzania. So when we were in Bangkok and Dubai, Mom and Dad paid for me to go to Kidzania, which is you can go and you can try out all the different jobs. So that one of them was like the airport, so that's like the front of the plane.
So I like to tell my mother that I dropped Lily off in the middle of Bangkok by herself when we left her there, which is true. But it's kind of like a Disney World type atmosphere, but it's kids only. So we dropped her off basically for the day. She loved it.
Yeah, that in the middle there, that's Disney Paris. So we went to Disney Hong Kong and Disney Paris, and that's Disney Paris. I went with Dad, and did you come?
I went to Paris. I didn't go to Hong Kong.
Yes, we went to Yes, and me and Dad took
Hong Kong,
our.
that's the Chinese girl is she was our guide throughout China. And when we went to Hong Kong, she came with us. She was excited because she's from mainland China, she's not actually allowed to go to Hong Kong. So, but she could only go because she was our guide, whatever that too. So she got to go to, she was a huge fan of Mickey Mouse, so she was pretty stoked to go to Disneyland for that too.
And the last picture in the bottom left corner is, so one time me and Mom and Dad went to McDonald's, and that was my toy, my McDonald's box. It was a Kleenex box.
But it had no Kleenex in it.
It didn't even have any Kleenex in it.
It's just a Kleenex cover, plastic Kleenex cover. So, wasn't it dangerous? So that's a primary question. We did our research. We didn't choose places. Doug and I really wanted to go to Istanbul, but in 2016 was about the time, just before we left, was about the time that the airport had been bombed, and it was pretty iffy. So we chose not to go there. And we used the Canadian Embassy guidelines. We did also have a lot of other safety measures. We taught Lily to walk airport formation, which meant that she would be in front of one of us. So there was an adult, her, and then another adult. Because I was quite concerned in the research that I had done that the things tend to happen at airports. There's a lot of people, it's busy, your mind is not clear because you've traveled, and then you're completely focused on something like passport control or something along that line. So we learned that one adult was going to be watching the family, and one adult was going to be dealing with ticket takers and that type of stuff. And there's lots of other things that we did, but again, I'll speak to anybody individually that would like. The worst things that happened were, what were the worst things that happened? Lily got bit by a monkey. That one there. That was my fault.
I actually didn't get bit by that. I think I can see some sort of paw.
Yeah. So that was not Lily's fault. That was my fault. And we were warned quite clearly by the medical people that a bite can be, things can be trip altering or trip ending, and an animal bite can be trip ending. And so 6 weeks into our trip, my goal of a lifetime, this one gets bit, and not only am I feeling guilty and upset about this, I'm thinking, this is it, we're going home. She did end up getting rabies shots. We had to take those with us as we traveled. We had to worry about where the rabies shots were coming from. They don't do them in your stomach anymore, they do them in your arm. Every doctor that we met that gave Lily her shot wanted their picture taken with her. It was kind of an odd kind of thing. So in the end, it was okay, but it was a really good learning experience for us. We sometimes got duped by hawkers, like these two guys. That was the end of that toboggan ride down the Great Wall of China. And we'd kind of gotten lulled into feeling, really comfortable with lots of different cultures and how lovely everybody was, Chinese people in particular. But these two guys, had us there in the hats and take pictures, and then all of a sudden they had their hand out. And then they really had their hand out when they weren't happy with what we were giving them. So that was a bit awkward more than anything else. And we did run into a few places that are not very happy with travelers these days. Venice is one of them. There's a lot of people traveling in a lot of places.
That picture is in Lisbon. It's actually in Portugal, yeah. It's a big anti-visitors, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
They feel that...
I think they feel like their way of life has been taken away. It's a little bit like here, right? Like the prices of our houses are going up. We have a lot of people coming in from other places. We can't afford to live here anymore because of those kinds of things. But amplify that by 1,000 because it's Venice or because it's Portugal. I'm not so as sure about. But so there's a fair, and then there's the environmental aspects, right? Like you're living in Venice in a sinking city, and you've got garbage and people that are not always great travelers. So so there are some there's some controversy.
And there was and then the Airbnb. A lot of places were really against it because they were saying that it's putting the hotels out of business, and then it's also it's taking up spaces where people that need to get jobs in town to rent, they're now having to move out of town to commute back into town and that too. So yeah, there's definitely that sentiment there.
So I like to say if
It
it's
did
not.
help when you tell them you're Canadian, though, because that seemed to smooth things
Yeah,
over.
it did. Yeah. We were actually in Vietnam when Trump got elected, and Doug was in the bathroom. I'm like, "You're never gonna believe this." And then
She was
people would,
kidding.
and then people would ask us, "How do you like Trump as your president?" And we were like, "No, we aren't American. We're Canadian." So we had some really good political conversations too. I have about 8 more slides, but I'm conscious of the time. It is 8 o'clock, so you're not going to offend me if you need to go somewhere. Please feel free to end our talk or leave when you need to, but I'll just finish up with a few. We did learn that if it's not a good time, it makes a good story. These are some really fantastic stories. That's my mom eating what she thought was going to be butter cheese, but in fact was butter, so she put that in her mouth. That's Doug in the back of a bus in Thailand that eventually broke down, and he wasn't happy sitting at the back, not only because the door was wide open and the fumes were coming, but I made him sit back there because what you can't see beside the guy in the orange shirt is a monk, and women are not allowed to sit, to touch monks.
That's why there's a gap. That's why the guy is sitting right on top of me, because there's a monk sitting on the window side, and he's not allowed to touch the monk, whatever that
Right.
is.
So
And then the women can't even sit in the same area as him.
then
So he's like basically tucked up right against the side of it. It's a cozy ride.
This middle picture of the sink, you can see the counter on the floor. Doug leaned in to look at himself in the mirror and broke the counter in Egypt. And that wasn't the bad thing. The bad thing is the culture there is that it's a big deal. And there was some of the cleaners were like, "Oh my God, don't tell anybody." And then it was
all a bit of a scam.
Yeah, it was
they were going to make you pay for it,
and then
one guy's like, "Oh, I'll tell them another story," and they want
and then he wants some money.
So
in the end,
the whole place was falling apart anyway. I just leaned on it. I think it's like a granite. I don't know.
Yeah. But anyway, it was pretty funny.
I broke a few other things over.
You did, yeah.
This is Wreck-It Ralph.
This is Grandma Reenie. Lily, you have to tell the story quickly, though. Tell us about Grandma Reenie and her camel ride. You have to look at that camel's face in this picture.
Camels, when they're angry, they scream. So that's the camel screaming. Grandma wanted to go on the camel ride, but she was really nervous. So that's her all freaked out, and that's the camel owner telling her what to do, standing in front of the camera, and the camel screaming. So that's I think Mom's favorite picture.
It just was one of those moments where we were just thinking hilarity because Grandma's 70 and she's got to get on this camel, but the camel starts screaming and she starts screaming. I think that man made more money in tips from my mother-in-law than he had in a month.
She tipped him. She should get off.
Yeah.
They get you on, they won't let you off.
Yeah, that's right. We have lots of other funny things that happened, but we haven't got time for all of them. So they really are the best stories, the ones that don't go away. We also got asked if we could speak any other language. Doug has a bit of French. Lily's French we found wasn't up to par. Can you tell your story about going to French camp quickly?
The English kid.
The English, yeah.
So, when we were in France, Mom and Dad sent me to Montessori school. It was like a
lunch break.
day camp for 1 full week to practice my French. So I went and I had some French. It was kind of hard to understand the kids though because they spoke really fast. But there was this one kid and he looked Indian, but he was English, but he didn't have any French whatsoever. So it was like an art camp. So we were inside, we were coloring, and I was beside him, and we were talking in English, and he asked me, "Can you speak English properly, please?" Because he was British, so I sounded so different from him.
So we came up with the slogan afterwards. Listen, kid, you can have Canadian English or Canadian French. You choose. We tried to learn thank you in every language of every country. I've forgotten them. Kapkun ka.
As soon as you learn one from one country, you're
you're into the next one.
Try to learn the next one.
So we wrote them down, and that was really handy. People really appreciated that. We could not find laundry in China, which for us is a bit of a joke because, of course, we did the term Chinese laundry here. But we literally lugged laundry for 3 days looking, and then we found this lady, and we drew pictures and drew numbers, and she laughed and we laughed, and we managed to get our laundry back, and so it all worked out in the end. But we cannot speak any other languages. Question: a lot of people, particularly British people, traveling, you could just take Lily out of school, and we're like, yes, we can, and I'm grateful for that. You get fined in many parts of Europe if you take your children out of school. And technically, I guess we homeschooled Lily, but we barely signed her out of school here. And when we got back, we were kind of, because Lily's in the French immersion program, we were all of a sudden surprised to find there was a test for her to come back in, which I probably would have had more French brushing up if we'd done that. But that was all fine too. So we had the School of the World. I took some math work with me because I felt like that was the only program that was going to follow her. And she's a pretty good reader as it is, so we kind of laid off everything else. But she learned to play cricket, and we learned all about those mummies, learned lots of things. So we currently know of people that are traveling right now, and she's struggling on Facebook with, what do we do about homeschooling? And I was like, stop teaching your child, it'll be fine, and it really was. It was amazing what Lily picked up in a short period of time, what we were able to do. This is good news for you back there? I can hear this. And it was, we kept, and then it was in fits and spurts. So you we're gonna do something every day. That doesn't happen. You did like an hour, for a week or two, and then you left it. And then, we gotta catch up. And so it was like that. Off you go, guys. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. Where else are we here? We just got a couple more. Weren't you homesick or sick of each other, Doug?
We definitely were sick of each other. It's hard enough to live in that close proximity to not get, but we were so busy during the day, and then at night you were so tired from all the stuff you'd done that you kind of just fell asleep right away in that too. So it was pretty good. Yeah. And then once again, it was hard. The time you got homesick was usually just before you. Lily, I think you found that just before you would fall asleep, you would start to miss home and stuff like that. But during the day, it was hard to miss home because you were so busy doing stuff that it yeah.
We used FaceTime a lot, and we used postcards. Doug actually sent a postcard.
I had my friend Alex, he said, I want you to send me a postcard. I don't want an email or anything, I just want a postcard. So I thought, great. But I don't know, in my mind, I thought he meant one from every country. So literally in every country we would go to, I would find a postcard. And sometimes it was hard to find a post office. So every month I would, or so he'd get these postcards. And then it's not until I got back, he told me, no, I just meant one postcard. I didn't mean but now we have this trail of postcards from around the world.
You always wrote the same thing.
Oh yeah, I said, hi Alex, I'm in, enter country name, miss you, or to wish you were here, Doug. That was it. I just ended like that. So.
Ariel, and as I'm looking at you, that is where we sent your postcard from. Yeah. Ariel never received her postcard, but that is the box that it went into. Lily sent every kid in her class a postcard in the month of their birth, so that was really fun for the kids, and then they would go to school and share them. She also made videos for her class, which we uploaded and they shared at different times, so that was pretty exciting. And actually, us having those videos is actually more precious to me, I think, than actually keeping in touch. At one time, we videoed with your class, and at that point, they were speaking French to Lily, and Lily was like, holy cow, they're going really fast. So we were trying to impress the teacher, but it didn't work. Technology tips. We'll go fast through this. We learned a lot about technology. This is kind of what it would look like. We were really glad we put a splitter and took a bunch of stuff. I'm surprised we didn't have a fire. We also learned that young people are the best photographers. So that photo that we used for this was actually like some random teenage kid that we were just like, take our picture. And he did. And he was like, he didn't even look. And that was what
like this.
Yeah. Yeah, because they do it all the time.
Yeah.
And we have lots of really good information about that too. We learned a lot about how not to back up photos and stuff, but we won't go through all that right now. What did you take with you? So what Lily is sitting on was the sum total of what we took. There's two largest bags there, those were Doug and mine, and the smaller one with the heart on it was Lily's, and that was it. And then we had 3 kind of carry-ons, each of which zipped onto the bags.
Yeah, we only packed for 6 days,
yeah.
And then just did laundry as we went.
Yeah, redid, and that was probably
sometimes we didn't do laundry.
Yeah. According to Doug's mother, we were pretty stinky by the time we got there. Some of the things that were key, though, was we did have a diary. We each wrote a tiny paragraph at a 1-page total a day, and that's very precious to me. We learned about, I can't think what those are called now, the zipper things that we used. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Anyway, those luggage sacks that are up there were the best thing ever. You could fit a ton of stuff in them, and they kept your suitcase from exploding.
Oh, they're just called cubes.
Cubes, packing cubes.
They come from Mountain Equipment Co-op.
Yeah,
and it's amazing how much stuff you can get into.
We each had that many, so my entire wardrobe fit into those 3 things.
You had like your underwear and socks, t-shirts and pants and sweaters.
Yeah, and that was it.
Fit in all those little cubes. Yeah.
And we traveled everywhere with a jar of peanut butter because we figured if nothing else, we could have peanut butter where we go. And I'm a bit picky about my peanut butter, so that was the one that we took. And that spork that's there, we each had one. We probably went through 6 of those by the time that we left. We kept having people replenish stuff for us. And a really good first aid kit. So that first aid kit was the size of like the pants section. And for a while we traveled with a fan because I really felt like I needed to have a portable fan. Doug was like, this fan! And then we had a kangaroo stuffy and,
we were in Australia, somebody gave us this kangaroo. It was this big, so like, you're trying to like jam this kangaroo into the thing.
So, and we shared stuff, right? So it's not like going to the hotel where everybody's got their itty bitty toothpaste and their own fancy shampoos. Like we had one, and we enlarged size stuff because there was no point in trying to buy that along the way. So, you know, everything, we had to agree on what type of toothpaste and all that type of stuff. What would you differently? What would you do again? Doug, what would you differently? What would you do again?
I think we were saying, Tamara and I, we were getting near the end of our trip, and then we went into Europe. And Europe, it seems so, I forgot, I hadn't been there in a while, but it's pretty westernized now. So it's not, compared to all the other stuff we'd seen, it was more new, novel kind of stuff. So we talked about after we were going to originally had planned to go to South America from there and that too, but then we kind of ran into a budget problem where it was going to be the flight to get from Europe over to South America was really expensive. So that point we just decided to go home in that too. So yeah, we probably did less of Europe and added the South America to it too. So that would have done the full round world trip then too. So yeah, that's probably the only thing we would have done differently.
Doug also, we talked about this last night, talked about his initial reservations about the whole thing. He never really told me that, you know, he really didn't listen.
I was like nervous to like the day we left, like to the point where like I didn't really want to go, like even the day we left, and then, someone was telling me something about, he said, don't do something because you're scared of it, whatever that. That's not a reason not to do something, whatever that too. So, and there's no real reason to be scared to do the trip, right? So it was just, you know, nervous and out of your comfort zone type of thing too. So yeah.
And Doug actually has his own business, so we just kind of collapsed that. So if you're in the situation you want to learn about, you know, just taking your business off the, you know, for a year, it can be done, and we can.
Some of my clients didn't even notice I was gone. So that's good or bad. And one of my clients said, "Oh, I can't believe you're going. I wish I could join you," whatever that too. So it's like, yeah, it wasn't a big deal. Whatever.
What would you do differently or do again, Lil?
Greece again. Egypt again.
Without your parents?
Which?
Do the trip without your parents?
I would go again, but not for that long. I would like to have gone to Israel or Japan. Except Japan is really expensive, and Mom said we can go around the world or spend 2 weeks in Japan.
I think it was a bit of a stretch. We actually had a Japanese teacher come and stay with us right after we got back, and it was a lovely experience, so we really want to do that now. Yeah. And we might land on his doorstep for a while.
That's right.
But we did learn that there is no place like home, and so this was our final picture where we were. We took that photo, many of you know who are here, we took that photo in every country that we went. So at my home, there's actually our home, there's a picture of us in that stance in every country, except for Germany, because somehow we forgot to do it, so there's a picture of Lily and Doug and beer.
Yeah.
But
Lily learned how to pour a perfect stein.
But yeah, she was there, that's right.
It's a cultural thing.
You know, we learned that life is the same and people are the same, and the treadmill is the same when you get home. I remember talking to my friends at school, and they were sitting in the same seat 6 months later in the staff room, and I was like, oh dear. And that people don't really notice when you're gone. Like, life goes on without you.
Yeah, I had a lot of friends that were like, "Oh, when are you gonna do your trip?" And I'm like, "We did the trip last year. We just got back." You know, because people's lives can kind of continue on, and it's like, yeah.
Lily, who pined for school the whole time that we were away, and her friends, after 2 weeks of being back at school, was like, "Yeah, we're ready for summer holidays now." And you know, travel teaches you kindness. It teaches you trusting of others. It teaches you that the world is not the way that it's portrayed in the media. Good news never makes it into the media. It teaches you how similar we are around the world, and that we are not that foreign. You know, we were worried about the language in China and, you know, the people of Egypt, and they were beautiful, kind-hearted, wonderful people. We had a couple of run-ins with a couple of people, which, you know, again, is
two almost physical altercations, and they were both with other tourists.
Yes. So
never with locals.
When we were in Thailand, there was a guy who I'm pretty sure was high, thought that I had dissed him, said something about him, and was threatening to hurt me. And you know, we were just walking down the street, but he was Australian, and we were in Cambodia and ran into an American guy who was just mouthing off about, you know, the culture and whatnot. But that was and Lily's monkey bite. So those, you know, were the 3 most horrendous things that happened to us. Oh, we did lose some money. So we knew this would probably happen, and it was entirely my fault. When you travel, you need to be careful about your cash, as you well know. And I had a little purse that I made myself that kind of acted like a fanny pack. And we would put our budget, kind of our daily budget would go to Doug's pocket. But when you take money out of the cash machine, you don't take, you know, your 1 day allotment, you take like a week allotment, right? So I would fold it up and know how many days we had, and I would keep it in this, you know, safe pocket. Well, we got lazy as we got going, and the purse that I should have been wearing went into my day pack. In Egypt, when we were on that felucca, we had to pay for something, and we didn't have it out of our daily allotment, so I went into my backpack, revealed the fact that I had this little white bag with cash in it, should have then put it on my body and slept with it that night, but then money started going missing out of this pocket. And it was not all the money, it was kind of just pilfered. So
it sort of seemed to disappear.
Yeah, so we talked.
Small increments.
Yeah, we talked to the tour guide about it. I still have my speculations that that's where it went, because he saw me take this package out. But the reality is, we could have lost money in a lot more nerve-wracking.
And it wasn't anything. It wasn't a lot.
No, it wasn't a lot.
It was a lot to whoever took it, because the money went a lot further. But to us, it wasn't a lot. So.
Yeah. So the world is a book. And those who do not travel read only one page, but you know that because you're here to hear all about it. We hope that we've encouraged you to go. We hope you know that the world is a great place and it's safe out there for most of us, and that it can be done for a reasonable amount of money. So thanks to all of you for coming to hear about our travels today.